the news at 6:30. And even as our panel of guests continue to stay with us through the next half an hour, we'll answer questions specifically related to the 2DG drug. Now, this is DRDO's big COVID breakthrough, the drug that they have developed in collaboration with Dr. Reddy's laboratory in Hyderabad. And this drug is touted to help COVID patients recover much faster, help reduce the dependence on oxygen support, and most importantly will help reduce hospitalization, and which is why lots is being talked on this drug, and of course its Patanjali link. So I'd once again like to thank our guests for staying with us and quickly want to introduce you to them. Dr. Mukhen, he's the Secretary of API Pune and Managing Director of Sanjeevan Hospital. He's joining us live from Pune. Also Dr. Alok Roy, Chairman of Medica Group of Hospitals, joining us live from Kolkata. And Anand Ranganathan, he's an author and scientist, joining us live from Delhi. Dr. Mukund, if I could come to you first to talk about the 2DG drug. Help us understand its mechanism, because so far reports suggest that the 2DG radio chemo modifier drug is used in cancer therapy, and Silico study that supports potential benefits of using 2DG against COVID. So how can the repurposed drug help mitigate COVID-19?
All right, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Basically, as we have seen, there are so many repurposed drugs which are being used for COVID-19. This particular drug, which as far as my knowledge goes, it basically affects the glycolysis of the particular virus, and also the cell which is being affected with the virus. So this particular thing, the affecting of glycolysis, which will almost kill the virus, it is actually a chemical killer, you can say. It is not a biological killer. So if it kills the virus in this way, it is going to be a very useful thing, because in as we discussed the initial presentation, the initial few days, maybe first week of the viral load, in the first week the viral load is too high, and if we can use this drug early in the course of the illness, then what will happen is the patients may not require the oxygen over a period of time. We may avoid the hypoxia, and we may avoid the hospitalizations if it can be used on the OPD basis. I don't know what are going to be the recommendations, but overall it is a chemical killer, and what we have heard of is it is going to have very promising results, except that we may be seeing some hypoglycemia with the patients, but most of the times the patients in our findings have hyperglycemia. So although we will be knowing which patients are going to get hypoglycemia, and we will definitely be monitoring the sugar. So this drug is very promising one, and maybe because it has been developed indigenously in India, we hope that this is going to be a cheaper drug, and not the cost is going to be under control.
Oh yes, and if I can take that point to Dr. Alok, because Dr. Alok, although the price is yet to be fixed, but doctors are saying that the recovery will be 2 or 3 days faster for COVID-19 patients, and most importantly, after DCGI has granted permission on the 1st of May, they're saying that because it is a generic molecule and an analog of glucose, it can easily be produced and made available in plenty in India, and that is such an important factor.
Of course. What is at this point is very important, that its availability for us, and if it is manufactured in India, and I guess the kind of medicine it is, it probably will not take a lead time to manufacture. So very quickly they can ramp it up, and as I have been promised, and as I've read and heard about it, that if this is available and it can cut down the oxygen requirement and bring it down within 3 days up to 42%, seems very, very promising. Especially with the view, this time in second pandemic, second COVID wave, the people requiring oxygen is very, very high. And as you have seen everywhere, media has been showing that people are taking oxygen from all over the places, including the gurudwaras, and at home, there's a holding of cylinders at home. So if we can bring down the consumption of oxygen. And oxygen is the sure shot medicine which works in COVID. This is like a music to our ears. I hope it happens sooner.
Couldn't hear you that clearly, but we will try and fix that line. If I could come to you, Anand Ranganathan, and to a tweet that I also read you had posted, which is while congratulating the DRDO, you also said that we should appreciate Patanjali for first suggesting use of 2DG, although their hypothesis was that 2DG directly attacks the virus. So while it is also being spoken of the Patanjali link to 2DG, what have you been able to find out about this until now?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks very much. Just give me a couple of minutes to talk in detail about this very important development. You see, it has been known since the beginning of SARS epidemic that people with comorbidities are vulnerable, and those who have diabetes are especially at risk. So investigating this, scientists since last year have discovered that unregulated blood glucose levels and occasions where glucose is very high actually helps the coronavirus. So this virus, a clever virus that it is, modulates the host cell metabolism for its advantage. And one such pathway is the glycolysis pathway that breaks down glucose, leading to more energy for the cell in terms of ATP. And this is hijacked by the virus. So Brazilian scientists last August showed that elevated glucose levels favor SARS-CoV-2 infection, favor SARS-CoV-2 replication, and lead to this so-called cytokine storm, which is very dangerous and leads to cell death. Now, this molecule 2-deoxy-D-glucose or 2DG is a very simple analog of glucose. Just the difference between what you have in RNA and DNA is the difference between glucose and 2DG, with one small functional group difference of OH. So it is taken up by cells as efficiently as glucose, and once inside, it blocks glycolysis by replacing glucose in the cell's enzymatic machinery. 2G has been proposed as an anti-cancer drug since 1958, but poor plasma availability and high IC50 has probably impeded its use as a drug. Nonetheless, Brazilian scientists showed that treatment with 2GD completely blocks viral replication in COV-2 infected human cells, as well as the COV-2 induced increase of the human ACE2 receptor, as well as inhibits virus-induced cytokine storm. In fact, I subsequently learned that this experiment was conducted by German scientists and published in May last year. I don't know when the DRDO began this study, but interestingly, Patanjali scientists last April had proposed a non-peer-reviewed proposal, 2DG as an inhibitor of SARS virus, although their hypothesis was that 2DG would directly attack one of the virus proteins. However, in their paper, they also outlined how, backed by previous literature, 2DG blocks glycolysis and could be useful in that context as well. So all in all, 2DG is surely a promising candidate to combat COVID.
Right, and to that effect, I also want to mention a statement that was made by the Defense Ministry, and if Dr. Mukhen could throw more light on it, because the Defense Ministry is saying that it accumulates in the virus-infected cells and prevents virus growth by stopping viral synthesis and energy production, and its selective accumulation in virally infected cells makes this drug unique. And most importantly, Dr. Mukund, they are also trying that 2DG can come in powder form, in sachet, and it can be taken orally. So the use of it will become much easier for patients to consume.
Right, for sure, as we discussed just now, it is very important, and especially if it can be taken orally and if it is permitted for those patients who are not admitted, then it will be a huge relief for all of us, the doctors also, and the patients which we are seeing. There are some patients who are borderline, and if they are not totally asymptomatic, if they are getting some sort of symptoms, and in such cases, especially as Dr. Anand Ranganathan said, if the patient is diabetic, then we can definitely try such kind of drugs, and it is going to definitely cause some hypoglycemia in the virus and the cells, so that the virus will not be able to survive. Basically, most of the times what we have seen, we were discussing about the mucormycosis also. The most important problem is hyperglycemia, and we are using some steroids at large in such patients. And this drug is definitely different one, and it is going to cause some hypoglycemia in the cells of the virus and the cells of the host also, those affected by the virus. So we are going to get early degeneration of such cells, and if we can save some patients by not requiring them the oxygen, then we are going to save the oxygen at a larger length, because this drug, once it is introduced, is being used by so many physicians all across the country. And I would request the authorities to give the approval or the
Right.
availability as early as possible, so that we can start using this drug, and we can see the response maybe over a period of time. Once we start using this drug, there may be some side effects which we may come across after using this, but for that we'll have to start using this drug first.
All right. All right, so we'll talk about this, but since you mentioned the oxygen point, I once again want to tell our viewers that doctors are saying that in the third phase, the freedom from oxygen dependence has been seen in 42% of the patients by day 3 as compared to 31% in standard care. Now, Dr. Alok, we know how oxygen supply has really been a pain point in the second wave of the pandemic, especially given the severity. And although now lots is being spoken about the third wave and how we need to be ready and how there needs to be enough supply of oxygen, but if this drug can really help on that front, then it will hugely solve a lot of issues.
Of course, if drug is effective, then it will resolve a lot of issues. It will save oxygen. We will recover faster, and the consequences and complications will be less. But please remember that first time we had hardly so many patients requiring oxygen. But this time the new virus, the variant virus which has come, is behaving differently. We do not know how the third virus will behave. The way complications are arising, the time factors has become almost insignificant. In last pandemic, last year, it was time bound. It was well ordained virus. You knew what will happen on the first day, third day, fifth day, seventh day. If you will have cytokine storm, what will happen? This time, it's so uncertain and different. Last time, the elderly age group was getting affected. This time, the younger age group is getting affected. So we really don't know what is going to be the shape of the virus or the disease or the epidemic. Yes, this drug would help those who require oxygen, but third wave, now it is being said in third wave that it will affect children. We really don't know. We are scared, we are worried, we are cautious, we are watching it very, very closely. So what will happen in third wave, no one knows. But this drug will help for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And Anand, I want to come back to you because obviously any solution to COVID-19, be it in the form of drugs or injections or Ayurveda or natural practices, honestly, every option has been explored. Now, once again, when the Patanjali link to this has come to light, and then again, researchers from Patanjali Research Institute had published their findings in 2020. Since you have been going in depth as far as this drug is concerned, what are your findings and what is your understanding until now of how they had developed on this and how the 2DG drug is shaping up, and if there was any correlation back in 2020 or how it has been reformed?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I think as scientists, we must acknowledge that, discovery and innovation can come from any quarter and it has to be respected. And I don't know why people are, not kind of giving Patanjali the credit, because as far as I'm concerned, Patanjali, even though this is a non-peer reviewed publication by them, they clearly indicated that 2DG could be used to inhibit viral replication. This was based, and they gave all the previous references of where 2DG has been used to stop viral replication in non-SARS viruses. Plus, they also had this hypothesis that 2DG might actually directly attack one of the viral proteases, thereby killing the virus. So they put this out in, I think, April 28th was the date when their non-peer-reviewed thing was published. Brazilian scientists published their path-breaking work in August. In May, I think May 14th, the German scientists published the effect of 2DG in blocking the viral replication. Now, I don't know, when the German scientists, put out their paper that was ultimately published in May, whether they put it out in March or something, but it is very clear that the effect of 2DG on cancer as well as on previous viruses has been known. And I think one must appreciate that if Patanjali independently led to this idea, it should be appreciated. And it's not that Patanjali is taking credit that we are the ones who came up with this. Many scientists came up with this. Many scientists were working in parallel, independently, across labs in Germany, Brazil, in India. We don't know when DRDO started their work. I mean, they declared, they publicized their work only last week or, this week.
Right.
But the fact is they might have been working even before Patanjali came, with their paper. So science is an exercise in humility. It recognizes a multiple array of scientific discoveries and innovations across nations and across boundaries. So I think people should give Patanjali the credit that they came up with this idea, I would believe, independently.
Right, absolutely. You make a fair point. And before we wrap this discussion, Dr. Mukhen, if I could get one last brief answer from you, because you also spoke about the third wave and how there could be side effects. And then again, we are talking about mutating variants, how vaccines will have to be upgraded with time. So any information that we have on that front with regards to this drug?
Definitely, as I said, this drug is going to be very much useful if we start, because hopefully we are at the fag end of the second wave. If this wave is going to be there not more than 15 days or a month, maybe not in such large numbers. And if we have to prepare for the third wave, the basic thing is the age, as the previous speaker said, last time it was mainly elderly. Now many young people are getting affected. At the next wave, we are predicting that the children basically are going to be affected. As of now, we haven't heard many children to be hospitalized. Most of the times only the mild illness is there in the children, but we are predicting in the next wave, if the virus mutates like this, the children may also be affected and may need hospitalizations in the, especially if the schools have been open, which we recommend or which we request the government not to open the schools. But for this particular thing, we'll have to definitely be prepared for. And vaccinations is the most important thing in this way. Also, we have observed that those who have completed 2 vaccinations, they have not been affected most of the times, or even if they have been affected, it is only a mild illness without significant lung involvement. As of now, as we have seen, the lung involvement is the most important thing, and the patients requiring oxygen because of lung involvement are going to get problems. So those people who have been vaccinated, and we urge the central government and the state government to improve or increase the vaccinations as early as possible.
Oh, yes. On that note, I'd like to thank all our guests for joining us this evening and speaking on this drug. We really hope this is the requisite answer to COVID-19. Also, given its many benefits of how easily it will be available, of how it could have a much lower cost, and most importantly, there could be easier forms of consumption. We'll continue to update our viewers on the 2DG drug developed by DRDO in collaboration with Dr. Reddy's laboratories. And once again, a big thank you to all our guests for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.